Hello, welcome back to Aetheral Space 12.14, Moonscorch. We are back.
Moonscorch. Hell yeah, let's get into it. Kalis Breck, Jungle Planet, Supremacy Space. Wait a minute, Kalis Breck? Doesn't that name sound familiar?
Wow!
Haven't we been there before?
It was the setting of Act 1.
It wasn't a jungle planet, though, was it?
It was.
Or did we just not know because it was in a city? Oh, that's fun. 3 years earlier. The last thing Preston Rickale remembered was the pain as a toy Musashi cut off his foot. The next thing Preston Rickale experienced was the pain as a toy Musashi cut everything else away, too. The bad news came... Could you imagine you, lose against a toy Musashi, right?
Yeah.
In Arc 1 Musashi with no power-ups. And you come back and you're like, alright, I'm stronger, I'll get revenge, and he's 10 million times stronger. How fucked would that be? No one ever talks about that when you're going up against people in Shonen. Revenge isn't so easy. The bad news came in an endless flood as Preston lay in the hospital bed, held for endless questioning by the Galactic Intelligence Division. His father, the Lord Mayor, had been killed by a toy Musashi. A new Lord Mayor was to be assigned, rather than him taking up his father's position. The Heart Building, essentially his house, had been found non-viable and was to be abandoned. Civil war had broken out between the gangs of Kalis Breck, dragging the planet further down into chaos. And all that... Musashi really did just fuck that planet, huh? As corrupt as it was. He just kind of, ruined everything. He's like, oh, my job's done. I've cut out the cancer. Goodbye. He fucked off. And all that time as he lay there, he seethed. A toy Musashi! A toy Musashi! A toy Musashi! This was me at Arc 8 with Tan after he killed Marie. Just seething his name in bed. In a way, he was grateful. It wasn't what his suffering was a result... It wasn't that his suffering was a result of bad luck or forces outside his comprehension. There was a name and a face he could blame. There was someone doing this to him. A toy Musashi, that fucking special officer who dropped out of the sky and torn down his life. Well, fucking parasite! Things did not improve for him when he was finally released. Without his assets, he'd been left homeless and destitute, wandering the streets of Azum Ha as little more than a pig. Wait, he got off planet, but he's homeless? How?
Yeah, they took him back to Azum Ha for interrogation.
Oh. But not a beggar. He never begged! He survived. Even when the nights grew cold as ice and his stomach was a void, he never lowered himself to that degree. He had a dream, after all. One that occupied his hours, waking and sleeping, both vengeance upon a toy Musashi. It was a petty dream, but even a petty dream could keep someone alive. Humans needed things like that to keep going on. Damn, maybe that's what I'm missing. It was one of those nights when he was huddled behind a fast food place's heatsink that the angel appeared. That's right, that was another thing I was going to ask you. Fast food. And then... What was that other thing I brought up?
I don't know.
Right. I got it. Whoops. It was one of those nights when he was huddled behind a fast food place's heatsink that the angel appeared. A young woman, short in stature, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. She knelt down next to him, and for a moment, he thought she would give him some of her change. He'd have lost it if that were the case, but it wasn't at all. Poor thing, she whispered. He hurt you, didn't he? That a toy Musashi? His eyes widened at the name, and an animalistic growl poured from his throat. Despite the dignity he tried to retain, there was only so much one could do with boiling rage. He was just about to get up when she planted a hand on his shoulder. Fingers fizzling with orange aether. Do we know anyone with orange aether?
I mean, Gretchen.
He hurt me too, she explained calmly. I totally forgot what her voice was.
It was a different body, so...
He took someone very important away from me. I want to make him pay. She blinked and the grip on his shoulder grew tighter. Do you want to make him pay? Ocean Hate. Floating city of Pangloss. Abandoned. Supremacy Space. Present day. Preston Rickale, or for the purposes of this mission, Pawn, roared with a voice that could shatter the sky. As the noise echoed, he swung his gargantuan leg right through another skyscraper and reduced it to a pile of rubble in an instant. Wait, wasn't he missing a foot, though? Oh, he had a prosthetic! Yeah. That was the Aether tool! That's cool. Smoke poured up. But did he unlock Aether? I thought he was Aetherless.
But we'll find out more.
Smoke poured up from his prosthetic foot. You're like a fucking teacher like Dora the Explorer. I'm like, wow, keep watching. Poured up from his prosthetic foot, burning everything it touched. The few traces of vegetation that had survived in Pangloss quickly found themselves transforming into ash. As the fingers on his injured hand regenerated, new digits pushing themselves out of the wounds, Pawn looked around frantically. He destroyed all the buildings around him, all the places that blonde bastard could attack him from. Wait, who's blonde?
Gregory.
Oh, Gregory, yeah. But there was no doubt that he was still around. He was an Aether Master, after all. Yes, Aether. He himself had only managed to unlock his Aether 3 months ago after extensive training, and only to a basic degree. However, even that rudimentary proficiency had been enough to use a fusion tool, and that fusion tool, Mount Malaise, had been enough to get him through the outer melee. I just realized someone like Gretchen, fusion tools or even armaments make things so much more dangerous, because you could have a whole league of untrained Aether users, but you put the right armaments in their hands.
Yeah.
That's terrifying. Oh man, how war changes, huh? With the Aether armament that Queen had granted him, he could stay. Is there such a thing as like standardized armaments they give to the military?
Not really, no, because they're pretty bespoke usually. Fusion tools, for example, they're made for a particular person. It only works for that person.
With the Aether armament that Queen had granted him, he could stand up to any opponent. Even so, he couldn't waste time here. While this paperman distracted him, Ettore Musashi was getting further and further away. If he didn't get after him quickly, he could escape. Or worse, King could kill him before Preston got the chance. Preston vaguely remembered this blonde guy's name from the files on the phases that King had passed around. Gregory Hazard, right? Whoever he was, if he wasn't dead, he was surely trapped under the rubble of this plaza. Preston could just leave him here and pursue Musashi. He took another step forward, shaking the earth. Blood splashed out from his heels. And he immediately fell on his face, shaking the earth again. Popcorn, because my throat's starting to hurt. I'm sorry.
Aye. Inside. Morgan Nock's latest ability, a transportation type, able to instantly record and manifest himself inside a sealed space of his choice. In this case, the building beneath him. Morgan dropped down into what had surely once been a child's bedroom, now ruined and scoured by fire and water.
Should this inside be capitalized?
Yeah.
Okay.
The fog had disappeared when Morgan has broken the connection, but he could still hear the speedster's footsteps above, circling the spot from where he'd vanished. That was good. That meant he wouldn't be going back after Musashi. No doubt that King Guy's subordinates had received similar orders to the phasers, delay the enemy. If that was the case, the running man wanted to keep Morgan here too, so he wouldn't break off pursuit. Morgan considered his options. With the speed that guy had been moving, there was no way he'd seen the exact moment Morgan had vanished, so he'd still be looking for him. How long would it take him to find in this room? Probably not too long, but even so, Morgan would be able to hear his footsteps. A surprise attack was not out of the question. He nodded to himself. Better to fight this guy in these cramped quarters where his movement was limited. Even if it was fast, if he could only move in certain ways, he could be easily anticipated. Morgan took a step forward, flipping his sword in his hand, and then went flying backwards as a small fist struck him in the face. He hit the wall, tearing free a fireball poster, and collapsed down onto the sodden floor. His sword slipped from his grip and landed next to him, where he could only watch, horrified, as the blur of a foot slams down on it again and again. Within a second or two, it was little more than a pile of shattered metal. Morgan leapt to his feet, but before he could so much as touch the ground, he'd been seized by the ankle and hurled into the opposite wall. The surface was weak, and so Morgan's body smashed through it and tumbled towards the river below. Bastard, Morgan thought. He wasn't as fast a second ago. Throwing his fist forward, Morgan conjured another string of fog and launched onto the overhang above, pulling himself up towards the roof. He was just in time. An instant afterwards, the blur launched itself out of the hole in the wall too, striking at the spot Morgan had just been in, before falling down into the water. Splash. The thing's swimming speed was so fast that Morgan couldn't even tell which direction it went. The water just exploded upwards, droplets raining onto the roof even as he climbed atop it. He caught his breath as much as he felt was safe. Whatever's going on, Morgan thought, looking around warily. It's not just speed, it's acceleration.
Unstop?
That was right. When the enemy had first tried to sneak attack Musashi, he'd been so fast that Morgan almost hadn't caught it. Then, however, he'd been fast, but not so fast that Morgan hadn't been able to keep track of him. And now he was just stupid fast again. F. A. C. Another burst of fog drifted out of Morgan's hand, forming into a rudimentary broadsword in his grip. It wouldn't be as effective as a physical object, but it was better than nothing. Morgan held the sword up, ready to counter-attack, his back pressed against the building's chimney. He already knew he wouldn't be able to see the attack coming, but if he struck the instant he felt pain, he just might have a chance. If Morgan was right, then the enemy's ability worked like so. They begin at a speed far exceeding that of a human being. The longer they continue moving, the faster they get. If they stop or hesitate, the speed returns to its base value and the ability resets.
Oh my god, so it is unstop.
Sort of, yeah.
Nice, I love it.
Sweat ran down the back of Morgan's neck as he waited, blade ready for the blow that surely must come. Was there an upper limit to the speed? If there wasn't, then Morgan was fucked. The enemy could just keep running around, building up the momentum, until they were so fast that Morgan couldn't hope to get them. Breathe.
Sorry, do you know that song? Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in,
No.
breathe out. That's just what I'm imagining seeing. It's on the page.
A and B.
Yeah.
Breathe in. It began to gently rain. Morgan welcomed the chill against his skin. Breathe out. He could hear the rain bouncing against the water below. Morgan tightened his grip against his sword, tendrils of fog curling around his fingers. Breathe in. In a shard of broken window, Morgan's reflection was visible. He'd seen better days. Blood was trickling down his face and his skin was turning pale. Breathe out. But that didn't matter. Breathe in. He had a plan. Breathe out. No. Breathe in. He had a victory. Breathe out. Popcorn.
Wu Ming glanced back over his shoulder. Huh? Combat tips? I don't know. I don't think too hard about that stuff. It mostly just comes natural, you know? Just win. That usually works. Hey, don't give me that face. You're the one who asked. Well, let me think. I guess people always say to think outside of the box, right? That's pretty good. But, God, what was Wu Ming's voice again?
It's sort of like that, but a tiny bit less flamboyant.
He had like a way of speaking, though, that I tried to do for Morgan. What was it?
I don't know.
Personally, I don't really get why they keep talking about this box. Don't they realize it never existed in the first place? Knight would have grinned to himself if he still had a mouth. He could feel the wind whipping against his brown carapace, could feel the rain sliding off his form, unable to keep up. He'd been circling the rooftop again and again, building up speed so fast that he was no longer visible. In about 10 seconds, he'd reach a speed that couldn't be reacted against. Then he'd go in for the kill. Knight's absurd speed was the result of something like an Aether glitch. Oh, where he, like, breaks the system of restrictions! That was actually something I intended to ask you about a while ago, but I forgot. Where it's like, can you game Aether in a way it doesn't expect to, like, get infinite results? That's so good. His normal ability was to always move slightly faster than the fastest object in the vicinity. Oh, but he made himself the fastest object, so it keeps going up. With it, he could outrun vehicles and bullets with ease. Fast by all means, but not unstoppable. However, when he combined with his Fusion 2, Gallant Gallop, things changed. It seemed that even though he and Gallant Gallop became one entity, his ability still recognized them as two separate things. As a result, his ability was constantly active, always making him slightly faster than himself, resulting in the endless acceleration. Queen had been quite excited about this result. Perhaps she thought it a display of her fusion tool's infinite potential. King couldn't help but agree. And then, just as he had expected, the fatal moment came. Morganach swung his smoke sword, clearly having spotted the afterimage of an afterimage, and of course he missed, hitting nothing but the ground. His last gambit had failed, and as he stepped forward away from the chimney to make it back, his back was left wide open. Knight wasn't kind enough to overlook that. In a fraction of a second, that's just called a smaller fraction, Knight weaved around Morgan, ducked under his arm, lunged for his back to run him through, and stopped. He had only had time to glance down at his foot. There, encasing it like some kind of bizarre shoe, was a white cube. Morgan swung around, whipping his massive sword through the air. He could have explained that he'd pushed all of his infusion into his brain, boosting his perception of time to its limit. He could have explained that he'd positioned a block directly behind himself. He could have explained that he'd intentionally missed that first slash, creating an opening that Knight surely could not resist. He could have explained that at the very last instant of an instant, he'd used I to put Knight's foot inside the block, halting his momentum for just a moment. He could have explained all of that, but he didn't. All he did was swing his sword and send Knight's head flying off his body. As the enemy's decapitated corpse crumpled to the ground, Morgan let out a breath he'd been holding for a long while. His broadsword of fog dissipated, and he stared at his scraped raw palm as the last tendrils drifted away. So what is the range on his ability? Because it can't be like the fastest thing in the universe.
It's like in the general area, like in a certain like bubble around him.
Okay, based on his perception, I assume.
Usually it can't target himself is the thing, but it targets his fusion tool that counts as separate to himself but moves at the same speed as him.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's so cool. Just win, huh? He muttered to himself, smiling softly. I see. It's exactly as you said, sir. The bloody rain fell down without end. Were you watching? Oh, he thinks Wu Ming's dead.
Yeah.
No, that's so sad. Oh, damn it! Preston, why are only certain parts bolded? Preston rasped, pushing himself across the ground, leaving a trail of crimson behind him. God damn it! He'd returned to normal size now, green aether fuzzing around his prosthetic foot as his fusion tool failed to reactivate. That prosthetic was the only leg Preston had now. It had been severed in Gregory Hazard's relentless assault, along with one of Preston's arms. The severed limb sunk down into the water below. So he's dead, right? Because when you lose a limb and you don't have a tourniquet, you bleed out almost instantaneously. Fuck you and your hums. Gregory followed casually after the dying Preston, hands back in his pockets. There wasn't so much as a scratch on him. His red eyes looked disdainfully down at Preston as the man continued trying to drag himself onwards. Fuck, what was his voice again?
He's sort of like a laid-back, but sort of like lazy, almost.
Hey, he said.
Yes, it.
Preston did not reply. He reached out with a shaking hand and seized the edge of the pavement, pulling himself further, until Gregory took his hand back out of his pocket for a moment. It was impossible to even see the moment Gregory cut off Preston's remaining arm. By the time the man started screaming, Gregory's hand had already returned to his pocket. Hey, Gregory repeated calmly. I'm talking to you. Damn it, damn it, damn it! In the distance, Preston could see Musashi, see him fighting King, see them smashing through buildings as their bout escalated. He was so close. He was right there! Musashi! He snarled, eyes bulging out of their sockets. Atoy Musashi! Squatting down, Gregory followed Preston's gaze inside. Wait a minute. What the fuck are his... What are the letters spelling that are bolded?
It's just sort of like he's wavering in and out of like trying to activate his fusion tool, basically.
Oh, okay. Squatting down, Gregory followed Preston's gaze inside. I see. So it's a revenge thing, huh? Man, I really don't get people like you. Out of my way. Preston pleaded, begged, demanded. I need to... Need to? Gregory raised an eyebrow. Nah, you didn't need to do anything. You wanted to kill him, right? I just don't get why. Gregory cut him off. He did something that pissed you off, right? It's usually something like that, but still. I really just don't understand how you can go throwing your life away for stuff like this, man. Doesn't make any sense. How old is Gregory?
He's like late 20s, early 30s.
Okay, he is way younger than expected. I, for some reason, thought he was like an older gentleman, like 50, 60. What amounted to strength finally abandoned Preston, and he was unable to do anything but stare up at the sky, at Gregory, whose face blocked out the sun. Silhouetted like that, all Preston could see of him were wide and empty red eyes. They stared down at Preston as that calm and lethargic voice went on and on. Love, hate, duty, revenge, ideals. It's not just that stuff's invisible. It's not even worthless. It doesn't even exist. If it existed, I could reach out and take hold of it, right? And yet dumbasses like you go around killing and dying for this stuff that isn't even real. Whatever happened, you survived, right? You should have been satisfied with your little miracle and sought out a comfortable life. His eyes narrowed. That's the best a miserable human can hope for. Don't you think? What? Tan? His paper folding ability. Did we see Aether channel around him?
Oh, we did the first time we used it, yes.
Oh, damn it. I thought you were implying he was a gene tyrant there. He gave no time for Preston to respond, nor did Preston have the strength to. Gregory simply strolled away. Or maybe he is a gene tyrant that can use Aether for some reason. Because people know he's a human. Gregory simply strolled away, casual as could be, strolling up the staircase into the city proper. Preston just lay there, his ragged breathing growing quieter and quieter. Atoy Musashi! Atoy Musashi! Atoy Musa! Until the rising water climbed over his face. Wow. Guys, let us know in the comments below if you think Gregory's a gene tyrant.
Please post your opinions.
Alright, Tane, you ready for some lore?
Sure.
1. Are there planets left still, not counting Lilith worlds, that are divided by countries with different governments?
Not so much different governments. You would like see different factions of governments controlling them sometimes.
Okay, so everyone's kind of like globalized more or less. Okay. 2. What's an example of a famous fast food place in the Aetheral Space? And how big do fast food chains get? Are they only planet-wide, or can they go system-wide, or are some like all throughout the galaxy?
There's some throughout the galaxy. You'll get different sizes, like in real life. There's Red Burger. That's a big one. They do.
Is that
like,
the remnants of McDonald's?
You used to believe this. It's basically like steak burgers, but very bloody.
Ooh,
And they're popular under supremacy.
Okay.
Until they introduced like a more well-cooked burger that wasn't red, and the Tree of Might was like, they've lost their way.
Red Burger went woke.
Exactly.
Alright, I got another one for you from an actual fan this time.
Okay. I mean, you're not a fan?
Let's open... No, I just mean like... Sorry. I mean like from a reader, not just me who does these with you. I am a fucking huge fan of Aetheral Space. Never put that into question. For it not. But Quaker asks, is there a reason why vanilla non-subspecies humans are called crownless? In parentheses, I have a feeling Tam will say the answer is a spoiler.
Well, basically, the idea is it's sort of a gene tyrant term. It's basically like, with these particular ones, we have crowned, we have given them greater purpose, we have elevated them beyond the common crownless people.
That's interesting, because I thought it was something like that, but my interpretation was slightly different. Mine was that because the subspecies were made to serve the gene tyrants directly, right? So anyone that didn't have a noble they directly served didn't have a crown to serve. They lacked a crown, so to speak. Like, because they weren't serving one.
Well, yeah, not necessarily. Like, even if you were a subspecies, in gene tyrant stands, you belonged to a gene tyrant.
I gotcha. Very interesting. Who was the nicest gene tyrant, and who was the evilest gene tyrant?
This is a big one. I would have to think about this. I don't want to introduce lore off the top of my head for stuff like that.
Nicest gene tyrant was like, get behind me, guys. Don't worry. Meanest gene tyrant. Because there's so much fucked up shit in Aetheral Space, I almost feel like it would be hard to name an evilest one. Because I'm sure there were plenty that did all kinds of fucked up stuff. But I like the idea of one who, like, you know those,
There was like, one, the Elizabeth Lady of Flies was a reboot of a previous one. He was, like, all fucked up to such a degree that the other gene tyrants, like, you have to reboot, we can't deal with you anymore.
What did that one do?
It basically, like, did a lot of the... Well, I say even, it did a lot of the normal gene tyrant stuff, but also fucked with other gene tyrants. But then when before getting rebooted, it, like, put a lot of plans in place to, like, mentally fuck with its successor.
You know
and,
how
like, drove
people
them
have...
insane, basically, after the
You know
fact.
those, like, roadside attractions? I know you guys don't really have them in England, but, like, in America, you've probably seen them in TV, like, oh, world's largest ball of yarn or whatever.
Yeah.
I was imagining there's a gene tyrant who took all, or, like, most of their people and made them one horrifying flesh ball and launched them into space as a moon. And it's like, come see our people moon. And then people were like, what the fuck are you doing? It's just a bunch of frozen corpses fused together. Like... I don't know. I love the idea of a living planet. I told you about this idea before, right? Like a planet that they made that's alive, that like self-sustains by eating and birthing shit, and it like carries on the memories of shit. Like its sole purpose is to be a giant library where you can like hook up flesh tubes Avatar style and like, you know, browse through all the memories of the world of like other gene tyrants that uploaded their shit there. So you could like preserve history. But I don't know what it would be called or if it's still alive. I assume if anyone found it, it would be destroyed immediately.
Yeah.
Because it's a giant living planet made by gene tyrants. Alright, well thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye!